Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I want to talk about exotic sets in the Division 2. With the most recent Year 5 Season 1 update, we saw the developers introduce what I would call an early iteration of a true exotic set, in which the new exotics that we got for the update, the St. Elmo's Engine Exotic Assault Rifle and the Shocker Punch Exotic Holster, if you combine the two and add in other certain elements, then they get enhanced power compared to just using them individually. And this is a system that we've seen before in the Division franchise, notably back in the Division 1, where we did have true exotic sets. And so today I want to go back to the Division 1, review some of what those exotic sets were back then, talk about how their power kind of influenced combat and gameplay, and determine whether or not it would be beneficial for us to see true exotic sets make their way into the Division 2 moving forward. So, should be pretty fun, but before we fully dive in, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Synced, an upcoming third-person shooter that I think many of you are going to find quite exciting. Synced offers rich gameplay and progression experiences across two distinct game modes, one centering around PvE, the other PvP. In PvE Dead Sectors, you've got different missions with scaling difficulty for your squad of 3 to tackle, and in PvP's Nerva Run, you're competing against 3 other squads to win the objective, all while trying to take each other out. Synced has deep progression systems that you can tweak and augment in between gameplay rounds back at Haven, your base. These include applying customizable and permanent attribute boosts. But maybe coolest of all, Synced features a unique companion system, allowing you to approach certain NPC enemies that you weaken, and gain control of them, adding them to your collection of companion nanos. You can command these allies with attack and defend orders, and fully customize and upgrade their stats and abilities back at your base as well. Synced has a lot of awesome content in store, and I hope that you'll consider checking the game out. You can wishlist the title on Steam right now using my custom link down in the description and pinned comment of this video. Thanks once again to Synced for sponsoring this video. Alright, so here we are in the Division 1, and like I said, I just want to go over some of the exotic sets that we've seen from the franchise in the past, especially if you didn't play the Division 1. This might be completely brand new to you, so I just want to go over what we've seen in the past and talk about how that might play into what we might see in the future. So the first one here you can see is the Hilder. This was the one half of the set between the Hilder and the Ear. So you can see right there that in these exotics you would have your talents, and then down below is where you would have the exotic set bonuses. So the twin Valkyries, they called it. You had to use the Hilder and the Ear, which were 2 twin SMGs. And then down here you can see set bonus for running both is the Valkyria talent. Each hit with the Hilder increases critical hit damage by 1% to a max of 30%. Bonus decreases by 1 every second. This bonus only applies to the Ear. So this one was pretty cool because it made you use the 2 weapons in tandem, right? You built up your stacks with the Hilder, and then when you wanted to release all of that damage, you switched to the Ear to get that increased 30% crit hit damage. Pretty cool set, not too much to really understand, pretty basic, but a cool set indeed. Next up right here, we have the Liberator. This is a exotic P416, I believe it is, or it's a lightweight M4, and then we had regular talents here, and again, then we had the Free Republic exotic set here, in which you had to use this gun, as well as the Centurion, which was an exotic pistol. And by running both, you got the Free Republic talent. Each shot with the Liberator grants 5% to your next headshot damage with the Centurion, maxes 200%. Kills with the Centurion grant 10% RPM to all weapons for 10 seconds. Pretty neat indeed. This one is a bit more synergistic, if that's a word, between the 2 guns, in which you build up the stacks with the Liberator to get the insane headshot damage on the Centurion, and then assuming you kind of one-shot someone, at least that's kind of the idea that I think this talent is promoting, you then swap back, and you can either then use the Liberator or whatever your secondary was and get that increased RPM. So you kind of use that flow in combat between the 2 weapons, and it was enhancing the overall damage output and things that you were doing. So that was another example. Moving down to the last one here, we have the Heal, which was part of a set between the Devil and the Heal. This one had its own unique exotic talent. You can see right here Fury, and it's kind of played into how the set bonus worked. So again, for using the both of them, you got the Devil's Heal talent. Both weapons gain the Fire and Fury talents, which, just to explain, the Heal had Fury and the Devil had Fire. So the 2 exotic talents on each gun, it says this shares the 2 between the 2 weapons. So both weapons gain the Fire and Fury talents, and the buff durations are increased by 15 seconds. Bonuses from Fire and Fury are no longer lost when swapping between the Devil and Heal. Weapon swap speed is increased. So even though these base weapons were never too good in the Division 1, this is one of the talents that I really like the most, because it really just made your 2 weapons, your primary and your secondary, be pretty much one weapon. Because like it says here, you can swap between them and not lose your bonuses. You increase the duration of the buffs for both bonuses. Your weapon swap speed is increased. Like, it was just a really solid pair that really fit the mark of an exotic set, in my opinion. So those were some of the primary examples of exotic sets in the Division 1. Again, it wasn't on every single exotic, and I think that's kind of what made them unique. So now that we've seen those examples, let's head back to the Division 2 and talk about how they might play into future content. All right, so like I said, those were some of the exotic sets that we had back in the Division 1, and like I mentioned at the start of the video, we've seen the devs, I would say, add in an interesting experimentation with possibly adding full versions of those into the Division 2. The new exotics in Year 5 Season 1 don't function the exact same as those ones did back in the Division 1, right? There is no set bonus that you necessarily unlock by equipping both the St. Elmo's and the Shocker Punch. But as you all likely know, you unlock further and further buffs to your Shocker Punch's capabilities, depending on if you also equip the St. Elmo's and then a shield. So again, I think that this is a clever way for them to kind of experiment and test the waters with if players really do want these to return in the Division 2, at least in the full form or the same idea of how they were presented in Division 1. And so far, at least from what I can tell, I think it's been a success. I feel like a lot of people enjoy the ability to be able to, like I said, further unlock those capabilities with the Shocker Punch if you want them, but it still functions as an exotic and a piece without having to use the St. Elmo's or the shield, albeit just a bit less powerful. So as for the question of should we see more of them moving forward, my take is yes. Now, what I wouldn't want to have happen is that every exotic moving forward is part of a set, right? Because then you feel a bit, at least in my opinion, you would feel a bit more shoehorned into playing with both of those if you feel like you're missing out on certain pieces of power. But I think they handled it really well back in the Division 1, where even once the concept of exotic sets were introduced, they didn't make every single exotic moving forward part of that system, right? Like I showed you just a minute ago, there are only a handful that we ended up getting over the years of Division 1 content. And if they were to continue this trend in the Division 2, I would hope to see them go down the same route, where if there's an idea and a specific concept for, oh, it'd be really cool if we made an exotic set with these two pieces and they gave you this bonus when used together, then go for it. Absolutely. That should be on the table. But I do not think that we should fully transition to that being the norm, where every single season we're getting two exotics that pair together. And then if you don't use them together, you feel like, oh, well, maybe I'm missing out. It's a fantastic tool, but it should not be the hard and fast rule, in my opinion. The big difference that we're seeing moving forward in the Division 2 is that unlike Division 1, which had no exotic limit to where you could only equip one exotic weapon and armor piece at a time, that is the case in the Division 2. And so like we saw in Year 5 Season 1, the set works together when you use the St. Elmo's and the Shocker Punch. Obviously, those are a weapon and armor piece respectively. So that's what we would see moving forward in the Division 2. But I think the concept of having that with different pieces of gear could be really neat. Again, given there is an actual smart idea and concept for why it would make sense to make those things a set. I don't think they should do it just for the sake of making exotic sets, but I think pretty much the entire player base would be totally down with it if there is, like I said, actual good ideas or cool bonuses that they can think of to make that would incorporate the idea of exotic sets. So yeah, everybody, I think that's about all I have for this one. I just thought this would be a pretty interesting topic to cover, given we have seen the devs kind of, like I said, dip their toe in the water with reintroducing these to the Division 2 based off the gear we got this season. And it was cool to go back and see how they used to work in the Division 1 and kind of compare that to what we're seeing now. So I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this. What has been your reaction to this rough idea of an exotic set that we've seen in the Division 2 with Year 5 Season 1? And given how some of those sets worked back in the Division 1, is it a concept that you would like to see implemented more and more moving forward? Maybe you're like me and you think, sure, but only if there's an actual good idea and it shouldn't necessarily be every single exotic we get. Or maybe it's something that you absolutely love and you do want to see it with every single new item moving forward. Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video and want more breakdowns and discussions like these, consider clicking that subscribe button. It truly helps out. But that's going to do it for me today, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.